All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. It is Wednesday, November 23rd of 2022. Looking ahead to a Thanksgiving tomorrow. A lot of DFS going on over the next couple days. Got a 12-game NBA slate tonight, a 15-game NHL slate to go along with it. We got the mini 3-game NFL main slate tomorrow, followed by tons of action over the weekend. Really looking forward to it. Myself getting stuffed, sitting on the couch, watching some sports and sweating my lineups. Can't wait for it myself. For those of you who are new here, welcome. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions that come in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you are not in our Discord, what are you doing? There is a link in the description below to get joined up right away. Get in there, get in on the DFS conversations happening every single day. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches here at SaberSim. And just a quick reminder for everybody, this is our last show of the week. We will have no show tomorrow for Thanksgiving or Friday. We will be back on Monday, the 28th. So if you have any questions ahead of the weekend, get them in now. I will get to all of the Discord questions first, and then we will jump over to the YouTube chat, answer any questions that come in live on stream. So that being said, let's get SaberSim pulled up here. Going to go with a different view today. I figure a bigger SaberSim screen is always better. So we're going to mix up the view. If anyone is doesn't like it, just let me know. But we had our first question come in, looks like late last night from the piano teacher. Going to get this in the chat and we are going to get it rolling. Question says, I would like to experiment with grabbing one lineup after a few adjusted projections and limited player pool to use in some 5x and 100 player contests before expanding everything out to the single entry and MME tournaments. How would you suggest going about finding this lineup? How many lineups in the build, and any custom metrics, pro plan, or settings to maybe hone in on? Thank you. Okay, good question here. Happy to talk about it. One thing I will say is that, these like multiplier type contests and these 100-man single entries, they're not cash, right? But they're not like a full scale like GPP as well. So this kind of like middle ground gets really interesting, kind of a gray area, not something we talk about too much, right? So, what do you want to do? How do you want to build is like the first and foremost thing. So, we have this multiplier option in the builder, and it looks like we're going to treat all multipliers the same, but you will see here that we are going to value correlation, ownership fade, and sim diversity still in these multiplier type contests. We are not going to treat it as a cash game with all the sliders off, and we are not going to treat it as like a full scale GPP. It's definitely something to take into account there and kind of note when you're building. What I will say is that I would generally trust the default pool sizes. You're going to want to kind of keep that pool size small and not get too wide, mostly because the type of lineups that you're going to be playing are going to be like highly projected lineups, pretty close to cash lineups, a lot of like 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s off of the cash optimal. What I would do if I was playing a multiplier, I would come in and I would run a cash build. And I would mostly be doing this to try and find out what like the typical cash construction is going to be. I'm not sure if this is a question for NFL or for NBA. So I'm going to approach this. I think my gut tells me this is like an NFL question, probably looking ahead to tomorrow's slate. So let me know if I'm wrong there. We are going to demo this for NFL, but I would come in here. and I would run a cash build. I'm going to make 2 really small changes to projections. That way I don't have to do it post build. So let me just come in here, make some quick projection adjustments, and we're going to run a cash build, and we're going to see what this looks like. So, I'm probably going to like write down the most exposed players in our 20 lineups to try and really like understand what the cash optimal is going to be. And I'm going to compare that basically to the multiplier build that I run. So in this scenario, I would take these guys down: Josh Allen, ARSB, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Singletary, Stevenson, Diggs, Knox, Schultz, Davis. I think that is like a solid start. Seems like we have 3 defenses all being used at like a similar rate. So I think all of these guys like above 50%. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players, used at like a really high rate. And we're seeing all these players in this first lineup. And then it looks like they're probably just swapping defenses around, which is basically, these two lineups right here are really similar, except, 1-for-1 swap for the defense. So, I'm basically going to like write this lineup down and kind of go and run my multipliers and see what that looks like. Right. So, I'm not writing it down, but, we could also toggle between the two. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to run a multiplier, and I want to see, how close is this to the cash build, just trying to like understand the dynamics of how the builder treats multipliers differently. What I will see is that, a lot of the same pieces. Looks like we got rid of Schultz here and added Khalif Raymond. We're getting him at an ownership discount. So, that's probably where like some of the sim diversity and some of the small ownership fade comes into play there. But, looks like some of these guys came up like getting like a little more Jacoby Myers, getting a little less concentrated with some of these plays. Most of them were in like the 80 to 90% range. So, yeah, I mean, looking at this, it looks like we only need to swap a couple places, Richie James, Khalif Raymond, these like lower owned, similar upside kind of plays. It is my interpretation of like what the builder's giving me. Adam Thielen, these kind of 1-for-1 swaps. So I think that, my takeaway here is that, okay, a multiplier, I don't need to get that different. I can build a somewhat cashy type lineup and not get too far off of the optimal, but take a shot on some different plays where the builder deems fit. So, going into this and actually building, it sounds like you're building a single lineup, but it sounds like you're playing a handful of multipliers. So if this was me, if I was playing 5 multipliers, I would probably build 5 different lineups. And the reason being is that we are seeing how similar these lineups are. Like the core pieces, 7 guys are about the same. 6 to 7 pieces are the same. So switching to running a second lineup with like 2 pieces different, I prefer that. And that way, I don't have all of my money invested in like one lineup. I'm taking like the best plays, and then I'm working in a couple different pieces around those lineups. So if I were playing like 5 multipliers, I wouldn't build one lineup. I would probably come in here, change this number of lineups to 5, and I would play 5 lineups. We can see that we have the same 6 pieces in all 5 lineups, and then we start to mix it up over here at the bottom. I think it's better to play more unique lineups, and the builder is going to make sure that you are getting like the highest projected plays into those lineups in this contest type with these specific slider settings. So my first point I want to make, you can build one lineup, but it's probably better to build a unique lineup for each one. And secondly, if you wanted to pick a single lineup, how I would do it would be kind of similar to this. And at some point, I think that if you're playing one lineup, you probably want to like be comfortable with every piece of that lineup. So I think it's totally okay to come in here and say, I like this lineup, but I don't like Khalif Raymond. You could come in here and you could do a 1-for-1 swap and see what other pieces are available. If you are comfortable with one of these other plays, you could take it for what it is and you could scroll through here and say, you know what? I'm really liking this number 3 lineup with Adam Thielen. He's historically been much better than Khalif Raymond or Richie James. This is the one I want to play. All you have to do is come in here and hit this lock button. And then if you change this number of lineups to 1, since you locked the lineup, it will be the one that shows up at the top. So a couple different ways to like really come in here. I think, building one lineup, it's going to be at some point, pretty opinionated, and it's on you to like kind of go through here, find the lineup that makes sense to you. I think running like a cash build to kind of see what the cash construction is, see how close you are to that, see where those swaps are taking place, can kind of help you to understand the lineup a little better and, just like the combinatorics of it, and come to a conclusion of finding a lineup or set of lineups that you are happy taking into the contest with you. So that being said, good question, and we are going to keep it rolling here. Okay, have quite a few questions here from our friend Studywood. Please let me know if I am saying that right, or Studwood. I would really like to know how to pronounce that. Okay, so first thing, it sounded like there was a bug that he was encountering where he would set this to 20 max and the number of lineups would be 150 regardless of whether he changed this to 20. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be happening for me right now. I did take it down as a bug report. So if you run into issues like that, just small things, all you have to do is come up here to the settings, hit this report a problem, give us a brief description, hit submit, gives the team a lot of information about your session to allow us to solve and revise these bugs. But I did take it down as a note. So we're going to skip that for now. And then we're going to move on to this second part of the question. Question says, is it counterintuitive to change the min unique players since that's what it gives you in the Sims? Because I love adding 3 min uniques on Showdown, but I am used to optimizers. Okay, good question here. So let's say we're playing the Buffalo Detroit Showdown to kick off the day, right? And we are going to come in here. We are going to run some lineups, going to make our 2 changes up front so we don't have to do it after the fact. Going to build 500 Showdown lineups, and let's see what they look like. Let's talk about min uniques a little bit and some conclusions we want to draw from using these tools. I think that, across our content over like the last month or so since min uniques has been out, we have been telling people to use it a lot, and we are huge fans of this feature. We think it's an awesome feature. I want to stress that I think it is a much better feature for classic slates than Showdowns. I am much more hesitant to use it in Showdowns, mostly because there are a lot of times in Showdown specifically. Well, one, you only have 6 players, right? The other NFL Classic, you have 9. So, you're already 3 roster spots down. If you are using min uniques in Showdown, a lot of times in Showdown, you have to find the optimal to win. It can be a 1-for-1 swap a lot of times. It could be the same 5 pieces with one, low salary player, low projected player instead of another. That happens all the time. So, if you are to start increasing this min uniques, I think that you can kind of limit the type of constructions that you're getting, since each lineup will have to have 2 players different from one another in the lineup. That is one thing that I don't like about min uniques. Also is that in Showdown specifically, there are less positive EV lineups, and there are even lesser positive EV lineups when you start to factor in duplication. So I think that I would be very cautious using min uniques in Showdown. If you were to use it, I probably wouldn't go more than 2 different. I think that locking in a min unique players of 2 is okay. I know this is something that Jordan, our head coach and previous owner, previous host of Office Hours, used to do or does. I've heard him talk about it. I've talked to him behind the scenes, and he likes to use min uniques for Showdown. He'll usually set this to 2. There are pros and cons of doing it. I'm more on the opposite end, but I think that what this kind of says is that there really isn't a definitive wrong or right answer. 2 people from the same company can have different opinions on different tools, and that is just because there is no wrong or right way to use it. I think that you should just understand what it is doing and what you are sacrificing by using a tool in a certain way. For me, losing the ability to have a 1-for-1 lineup swap does not outweigh increasing my diversity in Showdown, but I'm also playing a much smaller portion of my bankroll, so I'm a little more willing to take those risks and have more lineups that share 5 players. I don't know what exactly how Jordan approaches Showdown, but I do know that he likes to use them in unique players. So, there's a case to be made on both sides. Just kind of understand what it does, and you have to ask yourself, am I okay in X scenario? And if the answer is yes, then go ahead and move forward using that tool in that specific way. But that is the best advice I can give on using min uniques in Showdown. Let me know if you have any follow-up there. Okay, next question from USNR established 2007 said, hi, Andrew, can you set a rule for NFL to not allow more than 1 pass catcher from the same team without their quarterback? Also, is there a way to force someone from later games in flex to give late swap flexibility? Okay, good question. So I am going to talk about this second point first. So let's say we are using the 3-game NFL slate, and you want to force a position player from this last game in order to maintain some type of late swap flexibility. All right. What I would do is I would go into add a rule, and then I would use a group rule, and I would use an automatic rule, and then I would say use at least 1, and then I am going to only check running back, wide receiver, tight end, because these players are eligible for the flex. I'm going to group by game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a manual rule, and it's going to be 3 manual rules, 1 for each team. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go into this rule. I'm going to delete the Buffalo and the Dallas rule. That way I only have 1 for this Minnesota-New England game. And if you open this up, it's going to take all the position players and say must use at least 1. So we will automatically the builder will automatically put the position player with the latest start time in the flex. It always puts the last time player in the flex, and we can demo this really quickly. So I'm just going to come in here, and I am going to run some lineups really quickly, and we are just going to make sure this is working and make sure that we don't have any issues with this. So we're going to run 500 lineups really quickly here. And what was that last game there? So the last game is New England, Minnesota. We are saying use at least 1 from Minnesota, New England. So let's see what it looks like. All right. Okay. It's using Ramondre in the running back slot. All right. So what can we do about this? Okay. So it's clearly not working. the way I said it was. So I am going to come back to my rule and see if I can do anything differently here. We used to have like a flex option, but we took it away. So I am not sure if you can force somebody from the later game into the flex using a rule. I'm going to check on that. So rule to force player in flex. If I find an update to that, I will post it in the office hours channel in Discord. If you wanted to handle this post build, what I would do is I would basically come into this flex spot and I would zero out anybody that is not from New England or Minnesota and handle it that way. I think that is how you would have to handle it. In the meantime, I could come in, zero out all these players, and then continue to do that until I only have somebody from Minnesota or New England. Looks like I only had to do that twice. Negatives with this, I'll say, is that, you might get some low salary players. So you might not end up with that much late swap flexibility if you're only playing like one player from the last game and they happen to be low salary. So I would kind of be careful. I think a better way of doing this, and this is just kind of off the top of my head, I would just force 2 or 3 players, maybe 3 from the last game. So, going back to this rule, I would say, use at least, I would do 2 or 3, depending how much flexibility you want, and then save that rule. What this rule does better than the last way that we tried to do it is, one, you're going to have multiple players from the game. So there's going to be enough salary to kind of mix and match in the event that a late swap scenario occurs. More positional eligible or more roster positions available to swap, and more salary to divide different ways. If you use 3 players, you're going to have the ability to divvy up that salary different, and it won't be so constrictive in the post build like we just saw with some of those 3K salary guys in the flex. So if I were trying to build in late swap flexibility, I would more likely force more players from the last game. So those are my thoughts on late swap flexibility. And then the first part of the question was, can you set a rule to not allow more than one pass catcher from the same team without their QB? Yes, I believe you can do that. So if we do a group rule and we do an if then, so if at least, or we say if at least 2, and then we're going to say wide receivers and tight ends, and then this will be from the same team. So you group by team. If at least 2 from the same team that are a wide receiver or tight end, then use exactly 1 on the same team, and then only put quarterback. So then if you write this rule saying, hey, if I use at least 2 players on one team, then I must use the quarterback on the same team. So that is how I would write the rule. And this should limit more than 2 pass catchers from the same team. Either this rule, another way to handle it, come into the stack types and then turn all these stack types off. It sounds like you don't want to have, basically 2 players from the same game without their quarterback. So maybe only check in this 1-1. It might be really restrictive on a 3-game slate, but it is something you can do. So you can also try and handle this in the stack types. I think the rule that we demoed would work just fine. All right, going to keep rolling here through the Discord, and let's see. So just some quick questions. I think these will be quick hitters here. And it says, so I just changed the number of lineups to 20, and I see it changed a lot with this change, it's still pulling from the pool. For example, it only gave me one Dalton, one Slayton, one Gallup, and I definitely want more captain exposure to them. So I will just increase that. Okay, so if you are just like a brief note here. So if we are on 150 lineups, these are going to be, without any rules or restrictions to the builder. These are going to be the top 20 lineups in the pool, and you can see that by the rank value. If you're at 150, if you lower this to 20, all it's going to do is it is just going to show you the top 20. So yeah, your exposures are going to change, and your it sounds like you were doing Showdown, but your exposures are probably going to be more concentrated. So all you would have to do in that scenario is just come into these min and max exposures. If there are players with a 0 exposure that you are seeing that you don't want to be so exposed, what you can come in here and do, scroll over to this pool column, sort descending by pool, and then start adding in min exposures to these guys that you want exposure to. Maybe I'm saying I want at least one lineup with every quarterback in it. So I'm going to come in here, add min exposures, even if they are zeroed out and grayed out, you can add min exposure, and then we will go and find lineups in your pool of 500 where these players are in the lineup. So that is one way of doing it. It looks like there are a couple more questions here in regards to Showdown. So I am going to switch over to Showdown, get these questions in here, and we're just going to keep rolling. So first thing, does locking a captain mess with anything in a negative way? So if I am post build and let's say, I just want to play Josh Allen in the captain, all that's going to do is that if we hit Allen and we're going to lock him in at 100%, we are just going to go and find the top 20 lineups sorted by Saber score descending where Josh Allen is the captain. I think that if you are treating every lineup in your pool as viable, there is nothing wrong with this. All you are doing is giving your opinions to the builder and say, hey, go and find me the top 20 lineups where Josh Allen is indeed the captain. So, 500 lineup pool, plenty of lineups with Josh Allen as the captain. Looks like we have 122, and we are only building 20 lineups with a min unique of 2. And if I were to drop this down to 1, we still have no problem finding you 20 lineups there. All right, second question. Setting rules. Like one tight end and a tight end from the opposing team don't really correlate. Does setting rules work against the Sims? Okay, so if you are opinionated and say, hey, I don't really want to play 2 tight ends in the same lineup, just as like a general rule, any rules that you set before the build are going to affect the Sims, because we might pull an optimal where 2 tight ends we might pull a game sim and build the optimal, and 2 tight ends might be in the optimal, but because you set the rule that says that you do not want 2 tight ends, we are going to have to swap one of those pieces out and make the lineup quote unquote non-optimal. 5 out of those 6 pieces will be those original pieces, but that sixth piece will be swapped out based on the rules that you set. So definitely a trade-off with using rules there. I think one thing you can do is you could do like some post-build filtering. If you were to come into the flex here and say, hey, show me lineups that have Brock White and also have Dawson Knox, and it looks like there is one lineup in your top 20 and then 14 in the pool where these players are together, you can handle this by filtering. I would just come into the pool. If you don't want to play these, just trash them and handle it post build. That way the rule is not affecting any other lineups, and it is more of like a post build filtering thing, getting rid of the lineups that you want, but also knowing you did not affect the Sims when you originally ran the lineup by having this rule in pre-build. So I think the filters are a good way of handling such situations. And as we could see, that did not take very long for me to do. So, you might have to do it like the other way as well. Come in here and, I'm actually not seeing Dawson Knox in any of these. I'm only seeing maybe this Quinton Morris one. Is there a lineup where Quinton Morris and Brock White are together? Okay, so there are oh no, that was negative. So if I put it together, there are 3 in the pool. Come in and do this. Requires a little bit of filtering and trashing, but it can be done in a reasonable amount of time there. All right, last question. Is there a schedule where your ownership and projections lock? Okay, so especially for NFL, inactives come out 90 minutes prior to game time. Our sims, our final sims for NFL will run 1 hour to lock for each game. So especially on tomorrow's NFL slate, if you're playing the main slate, we are going to run the final sim for Buffalo and Detroit at 8:30 a.m. I am West Coast, so this is West Coast time. And then we will not run the final sim for the Dallas game until 12:30 p.m. And then for Minnesota, we will not run the final sim until 4:20 p.m. So final sims come out or will run and take about 7-ish minutes to run for these NFL games, 60 minutes to the game time starting. If you're playing NBA, it is much different. So like tonight, 12-game NBA slate. We will run final sims when the lineups are confirmed. If you come in the app and you will see green check marks above the teams when their lineups come out, the lineups are confirmed in SaberSim, and SaberSim has run sims with this lineup starting information. We will put in check marks here, and there will be a green check mark in this status column as well. So couple notes, it is very different across sports, and I would be aware of that. All right. Next question here. One more here says, how can I include low projected guys in the simulations without creating rules and increasing their projections? I don't want to increase too much, and it causes an influx of players and throws off the sims. Okay, so if we go back to our NFL Showdown example here, and we are in this build. So let's say, I'm going to take off some of these restrictions that we put on the build just to kind of show these lineups right off of the bat. And I'm going to make these adjustments so I can see the lineups. If there are low owned guys in the flex like that we are not showing, like Gilliam, like the Lions D, Barry Hill, like some of these long shots, but you want to take some shots on them, all you have to do, come into this min exposure column. I just put like a 1, and you can do this for as many players as you want. Hit this apply. And then we will now go and find lineups where those players are in. So, we put some min exposures down here, and now we are seeing those players in our 20 lineups. We will make sure we get some exposure to them. So if you want to do that, just use a min exposure column. Works like a charm. Okay. Next question here from Barbecue Nut said, in the post build, if I want to make a metric for sorting lineups, I'm still a bit confused as to when to use ascending versus descending. I know Saber score is descending, but after that, I get lost. Could you explain and give an example or two? Thanks and happy Thanksgiving. Yep, totally happy to do this. I will say that, this topic can be pretty confusing, and I would walk through this. I would be very cautious of using this until your understanding on it is pretty clear. So I think this is a really good question to touch on ahead of a long weekend. I will say that, I am pulling up some notes of my own that I have written down just to make my understanding of this really clear. So, okay. So let's say we are post build, right? And we are looking at Showdown. Maybe we don't want to set a geomean rule before the build as an input, but we want to see the geomean output, and we want to know what the geomean of each lineup is. We didn't have any effect on the sim, but now we are using it as basically a filtering tool at this point. So I have some of these other metrics. I'm just going to get rid of them. because I don't know. They're from a previous example. We're just going to start from scratch here. So if I'm on the pro plan, I have the ability to create these custom metrics. What I can do, I can go into add metric. I'm going to title this geo mean, so I can see the geo mean of each lineup. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say my own product value. If I use value, it is going to show the actual geo mean value. If I use rank, that is when you get the option to use ascending versus descending. I prefer to use rank when I am using multiple variables. So if I have multiple variables, I will use rank. What rank is going to do is going to standardize it. It's going to give every lineup either like a number 1 through 500 based on where it is in the pool, depending on how many lineups you have. So if I am using something, we'll do 2 examples. So if I'm using my own geo mean, I'm going to use value. I'm going to hit save here, and then I'm going to rename this to geo mean before we start doing more examples here. So geo mean, I'm going to save that metric. Now I can see the geo mean of every lineup as well as the sum ownership, and then I can come in here and sort by it. So it looks like when we do geo mean desorting, this is geo mean high to low. Ideally, you do not want a high geo mean. You probably want a lower geo mean. What I would do is I would have a number in mind that you are okay playing. Maybe you want to keep all your lineups under 24 geo mean. So then I would just come in here and trash all of these lineups until I know that my highest geo mean lineup is under a 24 value or like integer. So that's one way to do it. If you are like, hey, I want to play the lowest geo mean and shoot for non-duped lineups, you can sort this from low to high. Like this lineup has a geo mean of 0. I think like the bad thing is like these lineups are going to be pretty similar. And I saw a question in the chat. What is geo mean? Okay, so geo mean is a version of product ownership. So in DFS, there is sum ownership, which is like the you take every player's ownership and you add it together and you get this sum ownership. Geo mean is product ownership, which is basically multiplying all of these values together. It is a better metric for trying to avoid duplication in highly duplicated sports. If you are unfamiliar with this and want to learn more about it, when we release this feature, Jordan and I did like a 30-minute segment, talked about it from basically scratch, and really explained it using Word docs, using examples, pulling the formula up on screen. So I'm just going to show this really quickly, and then we'll get back to the demo. So if you go to our office hours playlist on YouTube, or just type in the name of this video, it is right. I just had it. DFS Q&A, product ownership, and geometric mean. We did about a 30-minute segment on it at the beginning of that show. Was really insightful and helped my understanding of it as well, because Jordan is really good at explaining those type of things. So getting back to this, these 0 geo mean lineups are going to have like a kind of similar vibe with like players with incredibly low ownership, probably guys that you don't want to play in the captain. So like I would be really careful sorting this way. I would rather sort high to low and then get rid of all geo means above a value that I do not want to play, and then treat the rest of the pool descending as viable. So that is a good example of where value comes into play, being able to see the values of the geo mean. Let's say I want to use something where I do rank and I want to use ascending versus descending, which is what the question was about. So if I were to come in here, if I were to use my projection sum, we're going to do something pretty basic. If I were to use value, it's going to give me the value, which is already right here, this projection score. It's just going to be the same exact number. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to do my projection sum. I'm going to use rank, And then if I do rank descending, what it's going to do is it is going to give the highest projected lineup a grade of 1. And if it is going to give the lowest projected lineup a grade of 500, because we have 500 lineups in our pool. So this is standardizing the value based on the number of lineups in your pool. If you were to use ascending, you say, you know what? It doesn't make sense to me that my projection sum, I want a high projection sum, and then I'm looking at a low number. In descending, I want to look at a high number to match my projection sum. So then you could use ascending. If you were to use ascending, your highest projected lineup would get the biggest number in your pool, which would be 500. And then the lowest projected lineup would get a number of 1, which would be your lowest projected lineup in your pool. I think that is like a fairly simple way of thinking about it. And, we're just going to do this. My projection sum rank descending, just for an example here. So this is my top projected lineup at 113.5. It now gets a 1. And, this second lineup sorted by, or we're still looking at GeoMean, but this is still the highest projected lineup regardless. So maybe I want to come in and sort by my projection one. So I'm just going to put my projection metric, and we're going to hit save. And then we are going to sort by that. So if I'm sorting my projection metric high to low, remember, this is where it gets like really confusing. So I want to be very clear. We are sorting by descending. So this is the lowest projection score in your pool. That is why it has a score of 500. In order to see it opposite, what you're going to have to do is come in here, and instead of sorting high to low, you're going to have to click on my projection again to get it to sort low to high. That is like the nuance of looking for a big number and then showing it as a small number. Maybe that is why you're like, no, too confusing. Just show me ascending. And then if you show it as ascending, then my projection metric is going to be 500. So this will be the highest projected score lineup in your pool. I would highly recommend practicing with one of the values that are already on here, either sum ownership, projected score, maybe Saber score. Saber score is an option underneath the drop down if you come all the way to the bottom. If you can practice with one of these and replicate it and understand the different ways to view it, to use it, rank versus value, I think that is the best starting point for learning how to use custom metrics and how they interact with the sorting methods. So that is my advice. Can be pretty confusing, and we are going to keep the show rolling, but happy to do a little refresher ahead of the long weekend. All right. Snowman had a trolling question here. He said, can you show us the winning lineup for Thanksgiving games? Well, I can't show you because I haven't built them yet, but I will be sure to show you in the Discord after I bink. All right. Going to keep rolling here, and looks like we got some pronunciation explanation. So thank you very much. Okay. How do you create a max one rule? Like I keep getting Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins in the same lineup. It's pronounced Stu DeWood. I'm from Houston, Texas. This is my neighborhood. All right. Stu DeWood. Thank you very much. I will now know how to pronounce your name correctly going forward. Stu DeWood. And how do you create a max one rule? Okay. If there are two guys that you continue to see in your lineups where you say you do not want to use them together, all you have to do, come into a group, come into a manual rule, say use no more than one, and then put those two players into your lineup together. I'm going to come over here to the Thursday main slate and do this because both of these players will be on here. So group, use no more than one. And then it was Richie James from the Giants and Isaiah Hodgins. I don't even know who he plays for. So Hodgins plays for the Giants as well. All right. So use no more than one. Hit save. This will be a rule that all of your lineups will have to abide by now. That is how you do that. You do that for any two players. Okay. Snowman said, who wins Saturday? Is it going to be Ohio State? I do not know. Our resident expert, Eric, college football expert, would be able to answer that better than I would. All right. That is it for our Discord questions. And we are going to be hopping over to YouTube chat now. So fair amount of questions here. Got a maybe a fun question from RC Bremen. Said, why haven't you joined SaberSim? Excel sheets aren't going to work anymore. Followed by a hello. And then HC said, what's up, everyone? Happy Thanksgiving. At the beginning of the stream, what is going on, you guys? Happy you're here for the show. I think we are long past the solver add-in in Excel. I would highly recommend joining SaberSim and using our simulation database to build your lineups. If you are not joined up with us, there is a link in the description below to a no strings attached 7-day free trial. Great day to sign up. Tons of action over the next 7 days, and you don't want to miss it. Trust me there. All right. Thanks for giving me a little alley-oop there to show off the 7-day no strings attached free trial. Going to keep rolling here. Question from Aaron. If you run a build requesting 888 out of 1,500 lineups, are your top 5 going to be way different than a build of 88 out of 500? So in other words, is there leverage in the larger numbers? Okay, good question here. So if this is one build, okay, so like let's say, I'm building 1,500 lineups. My number of lineups is 888. Which I don't know why it won't let me look at that. So hold on. Pool size 1,500. We'll just do this post build. So not sure why that wasn't letting me change it there, but we could definitely go in and change this. Oh, I think because I probably set some rules that messed this up. So I'm just gonna, if you guys are running into issues where your lineups aren't able to load or generate, all you got to do is come in here, hit this red reset icon. We're demoing so many things that probably has some conflicting rules in the builder. I'm just going to reset everything and then come in here and start a new build. This should set everything back to the basics and be able to generate lineups, which I am not sure why we are not getting lineups. So troubleshooting 101. Try the red reset icon. If that doesn't work, come in here and do a hard reset. Control-Shift-R if you are on Windows. Command-Shift-R if you are on Mac. And for some reason, there were some changes in here still. So I'm going to reset that one more time. I'm going to make sure all these rules are off. Looks like it took us back to the Showdown. We want to go over to the 3-game main slate. I'm going to make sure all the rules are off. We have a default min filter. Everything looks good on this end. I am going to come in here and change this back to GPP, change it back to 150, and change this back to the top entrance and just kind of see what this is looking like. So let's see if we are able to build some lineups. And we are not able to. Really interesting. Okay. Not sure what is going on, but we will figure it out. I will try and answer these questions to the best of my ability with no demo. So apologize about the difficulties there. I will figure out what is going on. Okay. So if you run a build of 888 lineups out of 1,500, so 888 is your number of lineups in the box at the top, and maybe we could just click into an old build and demo this. So let me see if I could do that. I'm going to try and click into a build from earlier. It looks like I can do it. So we'll just use this for now. So let's say, I'm going to give you a different example. Say I'm looking at 400 out of 500, right? Is my top 5 going to be different? No. All it's going to do is, instead of showing me 20, it's just going to add in 21 through 400. So the top 5 are not going to change. The only time the top lineups are going to change is when you run a second build. So every time you run a build, we are going into our simulation database and we are randomly sampling different subsets of game sims. And so in one like random pool, you can get a certain type of game sim, and then in a different random pool of game sims, you could get sims where other players did better. So that can definitely happen. That will change your top 5 lineups for sure in my experience. So, and then lastly, is there leverage in larger numbers? So what I will say is that we do not build lineups basically like all the lineups get built, and then after they are built, they get a Saber score grade. So building more lineups, I would always recommend building as many lineups as your plan allows you to, and then letting Saber score grade them, because it is not a sure fact that your top lineup is going to be the first one built. It could be the last one built, and SaberSim goes in when Saber score gets applied, and that could move it all the way up to a Saber score of 100. So that is what I will say in regards to like building number of lineups. Your top 5 lineups between 2 builds, probably different. I would always build as many lineups as possible. That way you get more lineups and Saber score can go in and grade them and give you the best ones in your pool. All right. Gonna keep rolling here. So question here from AK Knowledge, is there no more $49.99 starter choice? So we have upgraded our plans. There is a standard plan of $89.99 and SaberSim Pro of $129.99. If you are on a previous plan, we will not auto upgrade you. You will maintain the plan you are on. So if you were on the previous starter plan, I would recommend not canceling it. And then as long as you don't do that, you will be able to stay on that plan. So, okay, I'm going to keep rolling here. And that, Aaron, cheers, my man. Happy Thanksgiving. And then looks like that is the last question we had for office hours. Not sure exactly what is going on with the loading lineups, but I will figure it out. And if there are any updates to be posted, we will post those in the support channel in Discord. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope everybody has a very good time over the next couple days. Hope you all are able to play some DFS and sweat some games with the time off. We will be back on Monday, the 28th. And before we leave, I'm going to hit this question from Joff Manning. Said, if you were in a friendly league, FanDuel 11 players, would you run builds for cash or GPP single entry greater than 10 entrants? Okay, what I would do is, depending on the payout structure, if first place gets a higher payout, I would run it as a GPP single entry. And unless the payout structure is like really, really flat and a lot of places get paid, then I would run it as cash. So that is what I would do. I would try and run it as a GPP. Going to be pretty close to those cash type of lineups anyways with the slider settings for that. All right. That being said, everybody, take care. See you guys Monday. Happy Thanksgiving.